Hello!
Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us
For this,
once
the
again for this, the
66th episode of Drunk Dr. Who.
Dr. Who. We're back at it again.
Yay, I burned down the wagon.
After
I fell off it and then I burned it down.
Alright. And then you're back on the ashes.
What are you drinking?
I was drinking Twisted Tea. Now we're drinking Jack and Coke.
Oh, there you go. And I have Magma Flame. Yay, because life's too short for bad tasting alcohol.
I like this Bailey's cup you have here.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Alright.
So
Hey.
we are finally on to episode 66 of Drunk Dr. Who after a long hiatus of
A couple of months, yeah.
catching up with some subsidiary Heroes and Villains podcasts, watching animated episodes.
Right? Oh. We're supposed to be doing that tonight.
What are we supposed to be doing?
We're talking about the animated stuff, too.
Oh, are we?
Yeah.
Oh, so we've got some catching up to do on this podcast as well.
Yeah, and the and voting on. Well, we'll save the voting for next time.
Okay, yeah.
Because we got to do what was the last season we voted on, and then vote on the new one.
I'll have it here.
And I'll write it down.
Well, we can do that later, but
Okay.
it's somewhere.
All right.
So for this serial, we are in
Carnival of
Monsters.
Monsters.
Loop the O.
Yeah.
Has a tail on it too.
Monsters.
Aired February 10th, 1973. I'm not sure when it ended. 4 weeks later.
Well, 3 weeks later.
3 weeks later.
So that'd be 17th, 21st, 28th.
Mm-hmm.
Wait. No. 17th, 24th. 24th.
21 days later, the 31st?
No, February.
March.
So 3rd. March 3rd.
March 3rd is when it ended. 1973. Our companions are Joe Grant. There we go. Perfect.
Yeah, kinda.
It's a ditto right there.
It's a yada yada. 73.
There we go. Perfect.
Alright. The companion is Joe Grant.
Oh, sorry. We are with the third Doctor, Pertwee, and on his journey he's joined by his companion, Joe Grant.
Mm-hmm.
And they are on the planet Interminor, which once again is not the planet that they're trying to get on because
Trying to get to.
the Doctor doesn't know how to fly the TARDIS.
Well, he's just been giving it back not that long ago.
Mm-hmm.
Alright. Okay, so 4 episodes, and you put antagonists, the monsters, Pletrak and Orem.
Yeah, I don't remember the name of the species, but I don't want to put like the whole species was evil, even though the whole species seemed kind of evil because they're.
Well, basically, they kind of had worker-slave labor.
Yeah, they had like lesser worker-slave labor. They outlawed entertainment because it's frivolous, and and when the workers would freak out, they just shoot them.
Yeah.
So they're kind of like this high and mighty superior race who referred to themselves as. I don't know how you. It's not the third person, but they say one's own.
Yeah,
it's like a.
They don't seem to have the pronoun I.
Mm-hmm.
They seem to have. They use one instead of I.
Which is kind of like referring to yourself in the third person. Or objectively. Less involved. I don't know how you would call that, but.
Okay, but anyway, so we've got 2 groups aliens, or 2 main groups aliens.
Yeah, there's a tribunal.
The blue people.
Task.
The blue man group.
The blue man group.
What was that race?
Blue.
Well, did they name the race at any point?
I'm sure they did. That's what I was trying to find out. It's either.
Did I leave the DVD
maybe?
in the other room?
I read it. It's not on the back.
Oh yeah, I mean usually I bring it in, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. It is on the table.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so you got the Blue Man Group guys, and apparently they were on their own for a long time, and they recently are opening up to interstellar travel.
It's kind of like Japan.
Yeah.
In the Trade Federation. Yeah, they're very isolationist, and that's what made them strong. But now that they're opening up to other planetary pacts and trade routes, they're changing their laws and their rules. There's talks of, unbanning entertainment because maybe that's why the workers, slave drones are going crazy. And then that's really splitting these aliens into two factions, like the traditionalists who like how things were, how they're, isolationist, and what made them powerful was their technology and their defense mechanisms. And then there are the other aliens, which includes their new president, Zarb, who we never see. We never see him, but that's the guy who's kind of opening up trade routes and, talking about abolishing these old laws.
But Zarb's brother is one of the bad guys.
He's on the tribunal.
Of the Blue Man Group, yeah. So, okay. The story opens up. There are some Lurmans. This is another alien race.
Exactly like humans.
They look exactly like humans, unlike the Blue Man Group.
Or Tellurians, as...
Yeah, Tellurians, yeah.
That's us.
Yeah.
We evolved from Silurians into Tellurians. They went over once in a previous serial. Silurians are like primitive humans, and they talked about how
Silurians were the lizard people.
Yeah. I think we were supposed to have, like in the alternate Doctor Who timeline, Tellurians, who are humans, evolved from the lizard people, Silurians, or maybe
they keep calling us monkeys. Supposedly evolved from the monkeys. Anyway, so these.
No, I think I have that wrong. Yeah, I'm sorry. Tellurians were us, the humans that evolved from apes, and then Silurians were like the subterranean native lizard people. Yeah.
Well, I think they actually went underground because they thought that
of the monkeys.
Well, no, I think because of the
apocalypse, right?
Something like that, or the meteor that destroyed all the rest of the animal life, dinosaurs and all that. Yeah. So anyway, all right.
So there's a couple of callbacks.
Some callbacks. So you got the Lurmans, which is this guy and this lady, and the guy's a big time showman. I mean, like wearing these absolutely ridiculous Fruit Loop outfit.
I like the
lady's hat,
Sharina's headdress, like the bouncy orbs on the plastic sticks.
Yeah,
but his name is Ford.
Yeah,
the showman.
The Great Ford.
The Great Ford.
But their clothes are absolutely ridiculous, even for the 1970s. So anyway, he's got this machine, and this machine, it's got all these specimens inside of it.
It's called a miniscope.
A miniscope, and apparently it's been outlawed big time. And they thought they were all destroyed.
It's not humane.
But they weren't, because it keeps intelligent beings in a zoo-like scenario.
Yeah, miniaturizes these specimens, creatures, even humans.
Right, so you're not seeing a playback loop. You're seeing what's live actually going on.
Yeah.
And, there's a ship in there, the...
SS Bernice.
The SS Bernice.
Apparently it was at one time as famous as the...
Mary Celeste.
That suddenly went missing, vanished in the Indian Ocean.
Yeah.
Due to what they claimed was probably a freak tidal wave, even though the waters were very calm that night. So it just went missing, and they don't know why.
Was it June 4th, 1926?
Something like that.
Yeah. And
the early 1920s.
Right, so there's some humans in the miniscope on the ship that went missing, and they're stuck in a loop where they repeat the same stuff over and over and over.
Where they get terrorized by a Paleosaurus or something.
Yeah. All these things happen.
Who has very sharp teeth. I thought those were plant eaters, or are they not omnivores? Maybe they're carnivoric.
No
Paleosaur. I didn't study my dinosaurs. I don't know.
I see. But anyway, so they're on this loop, and the Dr. and Joe show up at the ship, literally in their cargo hold, thinking that they are going to. Did you get where he thought they were going?
Yeah, he was trying to go to Metabilis 3 in the Acteron galaxy, but instead they ended up on something minor. We don't find that out till later.
Yeah. Intraminor.
And since they land in the ship, Joe thinks they're on Earth because they have the Earth.
Because it's an Earth ship. Yeah. And there's chickens.
1920s newspaper.
And there's a cargo.
Singapore chickens.
Singapore.
Singapore chickens.
Stuff like that. And the newspaper was the London Times or whatever, the London Standard or Weekly or something.
I can't read.
Wait. Never mind. All right, so
this is just like sketches and diagrams,
pictographs,
hieroglyphs.
Okay, so the Doctor and Joe are running around trying to figure out what's going on, he eventually figures out that they are in the miniscope.
Yes.
In the meantime, you got a second plot going on where the Lemurs, the Lemurs are trying to talk their way onto the Blue Man Group's planet, but they won't let them in.
They're held up at customs.
Yeah, they're held up at customs because they've never allowed these aliens in before. They even traveled. They didn't travel coach. They traveled like in the baggage
cargo.
hold. Yeah, cargo hold with their micro whatever.
Apparently, they got there before they could request their visitor's visa
or something. So they're trying to bring entertainment. He's trying to be an entertainer, and at the exact same time, he's showing them what's going on inside, and you get to see it on the screen that they have.
Which I don't know what the difference is, like what the appeal of having live specimens over maybe just a recorded video.
Would you rather go to a zoo and see the real specimens, or would you rather?
But in the zoo, I can see the real specimens. They are seeing a video screen of the miniaturization, so they couldn't tell the difference because he looks at the screen, the telescreen that's showing the miniaturized people inside the machine. And he says, "Is that a recording?" He goes, "No, they're real. This is a live picture."
But he put his hand in, and so they saw the hand in there.
I felt like that's not part of the act though. He didn't want to.
No. He didn't want to put his hand in.
So they couldn't really tell the difference if it was just a telescreen.
Right. But would you rather? Okay, when you go to the zoo and you're still seeing a snake behind glass, in theory that could just be a projection on the screen. But it's more fun when you know it's real.
That's like watching the History Channel at the movie theater. Like,
yeah.
If I did go to a zoo and it was just a projection that I thought was real, then why wouldn't they do that if it could save them a lot of money? That's what I'd do if I was the
because it's cheaper to keep the snake.
So
there's just something. It's the fidelity of the experience. Okay. So anyway, this flim flam man, Zorg, or what is his name? Zarb? No, that's the president.
Yeah, Vorg, sorry. V-O-R-G is the showman. Zarb is the president.
Yeah. And
we've stepped into like 1970s sci-fi where it's like bright colors and what the 70s thought the future would be like. We haven't had a futuristic sci-fi episode in a while. Since maybe, I don't know, a few years. Because he's been stuck on Earth.
Yeah.
He's gone to the future, but is really grounded and realistic depictions of
most of
the Inferno. Doctor. Yeah, it's like this future science based. But
yeah, the Inferno's cool.
This is really the first time we see like a really 1970s future, almost like comic book-esque.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, Peloton doesn't count. It's more medieval.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so... Okay, the Doctor and Joe are trying to make their way after they figure out what they're in the microscope or milliscope or
miniscope, yeah.
Miniscope.
It's on a feedback loop.
It's on a loop. He figures out how to get them out of the ship and into the inner workings of the machine. And they're going through the inner workings of the machine, and they end up stumbling across one of the other places. They think they're going outside, but that's where what are those things called?
Drachings.
That's where the Drachings are. And the Drachings are big time, will eat you and not think twice about it.
I feel like they just repurposed the Paleosaurus miniature into a Draching miniature, because it looks kind of the same.
No, the Drachings got that really cool...
it looks like the same teeth, though.
Yeah.
I feel like they took this miniature and then added the antler eyes and some gills, and they're like, it's an alien now.
Why not?
Why not? So it looks like kind of a Paleosaurus dinosaur, but they repurposed this miniature into this alien worm. Mini eyes, sharp.
The stuff you never meant to be seen on a TV that big.
I loved it though. It looked great.
Yeah, I mean, most of people in the 60s still had black and white TVs. And they were much smaller. Cathode ray tubes. Alright, so eventually after they show up, the Vorg, or Vorb, or whatever. Yeah, he puts his hand in and he pulls the TARDIS out.
Yeah, so the the Doctor landing in the ship is causing some sort of interference with the miniscope electrical circuit. So he pulls out the TARDIS and he's like, I found the interference. Is this
bric-a-brac?
Yeah, bric-a-brac.
And so he sets the TARDIS aside, and eventually the TARDIS, instead of being this big when he pulls it out, goes to its normal size.
Yeah, well Vorg knows how like the containment field works on the miniscope.
Yeah.
So he like set it aside inside of the miniscope to keep it small because there's this containment field which shrinks things. And then the Tribunal come over and they pick it up. They're like, "What's this?" And he's like, "This is bric-a-brac." And then he took it out of the containment field, so then it grew up back into its normal size, which is what happens when things leave the miniscope and then they're not.
Right.
It grew back into a police box, which really freaked out the Tribunal.
True. Okay, so
Like, when's it gonna stop growing?
why does it keep changing size?
Giggity.
Okay, so
That's what she said.
That's what she said. So the Doctor and Joe are inside the inner workings of the miniscope.
He describes it as being inside of a wristwatch. He gets
Yeah.
very confusing.
Yeah, they're looking, and they're trying to make their way through. And they wind up in the moors where the creatures called?
Drashigs.
Drashigs are. Yeah. And all the people on the outside are looking at them going, oh, they're done for now. Oh, this is really bad. And Drashigs get the scent of the Doctor and Joe.
That brings me to a question.
Oh, okay.
These Drashigs, they have a ton of eyes. Mm-hmm. But apparently they don't use them because they hunt by scent. Mm-hmm. They're like bloodhounds. So here the Doctor and Joe stumble upon Drashig. The Drashig picks up their scent. For some reason, rather than smelling them right in front of him and being like, "Oh, I smell food right there," he traces the scent back to where they got out of the miniscope.
Right.
So they hunt by the origin, even though the end of the trail was right in front of him.
Well, no, I mean...
he goes around them and then follows the trail all the way back to the origin.
Let's say you hunt by scent, right? Okay?
Okay.
And there's a trail. There's a trail going in front of you.
Right.
Well, you might go the right direction on the trail. You might go the wrong direction on the trail. If the trail's fresh enough, you probably won't be able to tell which way's which.
So are they blind?
Pretty much, yeah.
He can't smell them, the fact that they're right there in front of him? I was confused.
Plot contrivance.
So he's following this trail. He doesn't know they're right there. He's following the trail, which leads him back to where they got out of the...
Where they got out of the cave. Yeah.
Out of the
miniscope.
The inner workings, the circuitry, into this other habitat area.
Right. So... they convince Zorg or whatever to put his hand in to save the Doctor. Yeah,
it's like they're gonna bite me.
Yeah, so he puts his hand in because they're teeny tiny, and he kind of pushes them away. And then the Doctor and Joe, it's like stop that. And it's like they're earthworms or something, you know. And the Doctor and Joe manage to get away back into the cave. The problem is the Drashings start to follow them, and they break through.
Yes,
and they start chasing the Doctor.
There's one cool scene where the Doctor uses a sonic screwdriver in a way I've never seen it before. When before Vorg interferes by slapping around the Drashigs, Joe gets stuck in one of the moors, the swamps, one of these methane gas swamps that are bubbling. She gets her foot stuck in it, and she's sinking. And the Drashigs are on the trail, they're coming after him. And then the Doctor pulls out his sonic screwdriver.
Yeah. And
describe what happens.
He ignites the methane gas on fire.
With sonic...
Yeah, apparently you can ignite things like candles and torches and... He
ignited the gas.
He ignited the gas, yeah. Sometimes they can use it to cut through stuff.
Oh, yeah. Have we seen that? I haven't seen that.
No, you haven't seen that, but you have seen him use it to...
remotely activated the landmines.
The landmines, right. He basically ignited the landmines. Mm-hmm. So you've seen him use it similarly.
Yes. Yeah. I just... Sonic. It's like sound.
Yeah, but
he's
it does
using
so
sound
much
waves
more.
to ignite. Maybe it's like a microwave, like waves.
Maybe.
Microsonic screwdriver. He ignited the ignition primers in the landmines. I guess it can make sparks. So he ignited the methane gas, which caused like a fire ring between the Drashigs and Joe, and it bought them time where he could pull Joe out, and then Vorg slapped him around, and then they got back into their circuitry. I just thought that was a cool note because I'd never seen the sonic screwdriver do that.
Now, later on, the Doctor will use it to scan everything, to change everything, to reprogram a computer. He just waves it in front of a screen, and the bad guy's defeated. It's pretty ludicrous.
Yeah, some things are just like a suspension of disbelief. You can say, well, it works on electronics, and you could go, okay, well, I don't know anything about electronics really. It can hack computers wherever. I can suspend my disbelief, and then they'll explain that with the fact that use a sonic screwdriver to unlock this door. And it's like, well, I can't because it's not an electronic lock. And you're like, okay, that makes sense. It does magical things with electronics. I don't understand. It doesn't do magical things with physical stuff.
With wood.
Right, but then he goes and he lights methane gas on fire, and it's like, how does that work? That's not an electronic. And then you just start to sit there and kind of think, and you try to explain it away.
It's an igniter.
Yeah. So what I feel like there's this constant back and forth where writers will make a universe, right? And there are laws and there are rules, and then the fandom falls in love with that universe, and they're like, okay, that makes sense. And then the writer will just be writing away, and then they'll write something that betrays one of the laws or the rules of the universe that they've written. And then the fandom goes, well, how can we explain that? So there are these great moments where fans are explaining away these plot holes, and they're like making it make sense within the universe. And
it happens a lot in Doctor Who.
Yeah. Star Wars too.
Oh God, I'm gonna be started with Star Wars. All right.
And Star Wars, one of the newer ones, they called a star the sun. And then the writers, they wrote that line down, and the new Death Star, which absorbs stars and blows up several planets at a time, the Starkiller base, they called the star the sun. They're like, well, that doesn't make sense because our star's the sun. That's what we named it. Why would they call their star the sun? And then apparently the fandom's explanation for that was, well, they're not speaking English, right? They're in a galaxy far, far away. So as we're watching it, it must be translated. So they said something not English, and then our translation of it.
Okay,
is
that's reasonable.
It's an auto translation.
Yeah. But
so I like that. I'm like, oh, it's fun when they explain
that's
things
reasonable.
that don't make sense.
The sonic screwdriver is almost always with the Doctor.
It's Batman's belt.
Essentially, can do almost anything. It does whatever the plot needs it to do. Basically, It doesn't do what the plot doesn't want it to do. There is a period of time where the Doctor gets rid of the sonic screwdriver twice.
But that made things hard for him.
Yeah, they just got tired of it being a big contrivance. So I think the 5th Doctor gets a sonic screwdriver destroyed,
like a lightsaber,
and he doesn't have it for a long time. The Doctor does it, but it comes back. And the 12th Doctor ditches the screwdriver for a while in favor of sonic sunglasses.
He's a cool guy.
Yeah,
cool guy.
I kid you not.
So he unlocks things just by just looking at them.
Well, it really helps him when he goes blind for a while.
He's blind.
He goes blind for a while. Spoilers. All right. So anyway, back to this plot. All right. So the Drashigs are chasing them.
Yes.
And they bust into the inner workings of the machine.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, the Doctor's trying to figure out a way out. And they're trying to escape. Joe gets caught by the people on the ship again. Mm-hmm. And then one of the Drashigs shows up and breaks into the ship environment. And the Major gets a Tommy gun.
Yes.
And shoots him. Oh yeah, on the ship there's the Major, there's his daughter. What's her name?
Dally and...
Dahlia?
No, Dally's the Major.
Okay, Major Dally.
Then we have Captain... It's not the Captain, but it's like the Sub-Captain.
First Mate.
First Mate is John Andrews.
Yeah. Yeah, we never see the Captain.
We do. He has the beard. He finally comes out.
Oh yeah, right at the very end
when the Drashig is escaping.
Yeah. And don't.
I don't know if I caught her name. It's Dally's daughter. Captain Andrews is in love with.
Yeah. They're in love, and they're walking around the deck, talking about movies and stuff.
Yeah. About the dancer. What was his name?
Fred Astaire.
They're talking about Fred Astaire because it's the 1920s.
Yeah. And he was young then.
No, I'm sure it said her name. I didn't write it down.
So anyway, yeah, the Major brings out a Tommy gun and shoots the one Dashig dead. Another one gets blown to smithereens by the dynamite,
which causes a whole meltdown in the circuitry of the miniscope because they broke through the circuitry into the ship, and John Andrews is throwing dynamite sticks out
into the circuitry. So the whole thing starts shutting down.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, the Doctor just does manage to make it out.
Yes.
Of the miniscope.
Yeah, they got separated because the exit to the miniscope circuitry to the outside world they found was down a shaft, which is why they went back to the SS Bernice to get rope. And then the Drashigs were roaring, which Dally and John heard, so they went down into the cargo hold. And so Joe and the Doctor are hiding behind a crate, but Joe's leg's sticking out because there's just not quite enough room behind the crate. So they see Joe, they're like, come out. So Joe says, I'll give myself up and you stay hidden here. And they do their sign language for that. So the Doctor stays hidden, and that's how Joe goes and gives herself up. So Joe's stuck on the ship, the SS Bernice, with the Drashigs when they finally break out. But the Doctor made it away with the rope, and he made it down the chute.
Well, after he got knocked unconscious with the one Drashig breaking through.
Right, yes. So that's happening.
So he finally gets out.
Mm-hmm.
He manages to push his way through the plating on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
He gets big again. And then he starts, he gets accosted by the
tribunal.
The Blue Man Group
tribunal's task is to keep the planet clean, which just plays into their whole stereotype of their air of superiority. Like, you're unclean, you're an alien, you have diseases, and that's their whole role. Is they're the ones who dictate who can enter the planet, who gets visitation visas, and
but
so they don't like the Doctor.
Right. But anyway, so the Doctor's like, well, wait a second. You got this machine here. This machine's outlawed. Yeah, I need to save my my assistant, because he gets introduced to the Varg or whatever, and he's got his assistant. And the Doctor's like, okay, you save my assistant, and I may just overlook all ththese problems, you know? But the Doctor, sees the TARDIS. He's like, yay! He goes in, he hooks up the TARDIS to the miniscope, and he's trying to set up everything so that he can go back in, try to get Joe, and then try to get out again before it all shuts down. And at the same time, send everyone back to their original space-time coordinates.
Yes.
So that they get to go home. So that the HMS Bessie or Bernice. HMS Bernice.
Even the Drashigs were innocent, vicious Drashigs.
And the Ogron.
Yeah, they're also the Daleks' subordinate Ogrons.
Yeah, there's a couple other things in there. They mentioned 5 circuits, so we don't know exactly what's in the other ones. We know there's an Ogron, but there's a couple.
What if there's a miniature Dalek rolling around?
Would be bad. But anyway, so the Doctor manages to go in. He finds Joe, and he's trying to get her out, and at the same time, there's a giant subplot where one of the triumvirate, his brother happens to be the president, and he's trying to set it up so the Dashigs get out, attack the city, so that he can go, look, this is the problem with allowing aliens onto the planet. Let's not do that. Let's go back to the old ways. But he has to help the things get out in order to do this, because apparently they're stuck inside.
Try to create a catastrophe to take political
advantage. Yeah.
Right, yeah. Just rest and then point fingers and blame.
Yeah, never let a crisis go to waste.
Yeah, this is that political divide that we mentioned earlier. The purists want to keep their isolationist point of view, and then the people that are, opening up borders and welcoming trade routes and stuff and visitors. And, that's where that whole goes.
So, he's trying to help the Dashings out. In the meantime, they sabotage the only weapon that could destroy the things because they wanted to make sure that they got to the city.
It's an anti-organic material heat ray thing, basically.
Yeah, it's called the Eliminator? No, the...
Eradicator?
Eradicator, yeah. So, they take the main component, the battery pack out of the Eradicator, and they hide it in Varg's stuff.
Yeah, just in case it's found. And
they want him to be blamed.
Yeah.
So he finds it, and he's apparently ex-military. So he's like, oh, I know what this is. And then when the Drashigs do get out, and they kill the stupid Hanyak that's trying to,
Never wrote that down.
Oh, yeah.
One death.
Then
technically one other.
What one other?
The worker drone that went crazy.
Oh,
and
yeah, they killed the beginning.
They stunned him. They're like, is he dead? He's like, no, just stunned. But we're going to drag him off and kill him later. They're like, oh, okay.
After we examine his head and his body and all that.
Figure out why he's going crazy.
Yeah, his nervous system.
They think maybe because of the lack of entertainment.
Children's show. Yeah.
It's really dark.
It's very dystopian. Well, it's a very light dystopian, though. It's a lot more like Paranoia than 1984.
Which I'm reading for the first time.
Nice. Yeah. Alright, so the Doctor manages to get in. He manages to find Joe. They're crawling through the circuits literally as all of the life support systems are shutting down.
Which makes it very hot.
Yeah, it makes it very hot, very stuffy. They can't breathe. At the very last second, Varg follows the instructions the Doctor gave him. The second switch got blown up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he has to somehow. In the meantime, he ends up turning on the ray gun, the Eradicator, and kills all the Darshigs that escape. So he killed the Darshigs. Which is kind of good because he's the guy who brought him there.
I don't really get how that plays in later, but it's a later question at the end of this.
So the Doctor and Joe get saved at the very last moment, of course, and everybody gets to go back home. All the different groups head back home. Oh, okay.
I'll be right back.
No problem. All right. So. See you in a minute. Right, so the Doctor then goes, okay, hey, the machine's dead, everybody's back, we're going to head off, and Varg and his assistant are like, well, we're broke, but Varg starts playing, the 3 shell game to get money off of the locals, the Yoko locals. And he starts winning money off of them pretty much immediately. And that's when the Doctor and Joe leave. And everyone who should live lived happily ever after. And the one Hanyak who was trying to lead a rebellion died. And everybody got to go back home. So it's all good. Yay! It was only 4 parts, and it moves at a good clip. The longest stretch of it was about the first one, when they're the people on the ship are stuck in a loop. But they keep that from getting too boring by always filming everything on the later iterations from other angles. So you get to see it play out differently, and it's really cool. Also at the same time, of course, the Doctor and Joe are not stuck in the loop. They're not pre-programmed because they weren't there to be programmed initially. So they get to understand what's going on. Whereas people in the loop can't because they're in the loop. And this comes into play much later when Jo Grant keeps getting captured. And she's like, yeah, I'll wait here till the captain can see me. And, because she's done it 4 or 5 times and no one else has. Alright. Okay, that's pretty much the long and the short of it. when Holden gets back, he'll ask me questions about this, and then we'll talk about the animated features that we've watched in the meantime, while we were doing the heroes and villains. And we still have 2 more animated features to watch. The ones we have watched recently, well, in this case, 1. We did watch some movies, but we did watch the 1 animated feature that we had not watched previously, which was the Macro Terror, as opposed to the reconstruction. Alright. Hey.
Pull in. What does the showman say when he's gathering his crowds?
Come in. But okay, I was telling them, I finished up the story, and I was telling them how we did watch the Macro Terror animated. And we still have the Faceless Ones to go, and the Fury from the Deep to go.
Mm-hmm.
But
Macro Terror was great, by the way.
Yeah, we'll get those in subsequent weeks.
The reconstructed is not as good.
No,
as
by no means as good as the animated. Alright, what questions do you have, or comments or anything about this one?
Several.
Cool.
Also, Joe carries skeleton keys, just a full ring of them. I've never seen that before. We know she's the
escapologist.
Yes.
She has a degree in escapology, which would make sense why you would have skeleton keys.
Yeah. Which I feel like we should have seen them earlier, but I guess mostly they're bound up by rope rather than anything with locks. I just never saw the skeleton key, and I thought it was strange how it didn't come up earlier. Those are useful. I used to craft those in World of Warcraft with blacksmithing. So. I also drew comparisons with Vorg, the showman, Carnival guy, the Fruity Loops dude. Between the Doctor, I thought there were weird similarities, how they travel, and they both have companions, and they both have machines that they can't really control to a T.
To be fair, Vorg does the same thing. Yeah. Vorg approaches the Doctor thinking he's a carnival.
He's like, look how he's dressed, look how he acts. He's a showman, he's just like me.
Yeah, he's got the charisma. Yeah.
So I thought it was strange and interesting how those comparisons were drawn.
Yeah, it's a shame we never see Vorg again.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. But, okay. What other questions do you have?
Also,
that wasn't really a question.
We have fixed points in time, right? Where Time Lords cannot interfere with something that's happened. Now, the Doctor has a good, well-rounded knowledge of history, so he knew about the SS Bernice that went missing, and he said at one point it was as famous as the Mary Celeste that went missing, right? However, since it's been missing, he went back and he sent it back to its original timeline.
Yeah.
Back to February 4th to the 5th.
June 4th.
June 4th, 1923, 26. Right when it went missing. So he erased that history of it going missing to where that had happened. Yeah, so it arrived. So he changed a fixed point in time, like a historic event.
It was a fixed point in time.
Okay. So what makes times fixed points?
Whatever the plot needs to be.
Butterfly flapping its wings.
Yeah.
So it's weird that he could change that, but they never did change the Mary Celeste, because they're on the Mary Celeste, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it still went missing because the Daleks made everyone jump overboard. Which is another fixed point. Well, I guess he was the cause of that historic event rather than the uncausing of the other historic event.
There you go.
Now I've confused myself.
Okay.
Since some things aren't as fixed as I thought they would be. We talked about the scent trail with the Drashigs, the sonic pyroblast from the methane gas. Oh, let's talk about Time Lord interference and how the Time Lords never interfere except when they do. And then they do. Apparently this time is because of the Doctor campaigning to legalize to
outlaw the microscopes, miniscopes.
Which, who knew the Time Lords had that kind of pull over of the whole galaxy? universe.
Well, what do you hear about the Shadow Proclamation?
They're just allowed to outlaw things. And
what do you hear about the Shadow Proclamation?
so they don't interfere, but they still can outlaw things. So they must be the dominant force of the guy.
They are one of the most dominant forces of the universe, yeah.
Which makes you think, well, where were they when things like the Daleks' master plan was underway with like the Guardian?
The Doctor fixed that.
But not under the guise of the
No.
of the Time Lords.
No.
However, the Time Lords do get involved when they're power sources that, like with Omega.
right. Or when they were...
Which they were oddly powerless to do anything about, except by drafting the Doctors.
Yeah. But no, also they got involved... They get involved several times. They don't normally get involved, but occasionally they do, whenever the plot requires it.
They're kind of like America.
And let's see, and later on you find out about the Shadow Proclamation. The Shadow Proclamation is an intergalactic police organization that outlaws things, and they maintain the peace.
Shady. Is it like the Masons Guild?
Not
Shadow
exactly,
government?
but they have this Jadoon help them.
What?
The Jadoon.
Okay.
They're giant rhinoceri.
Ooh. I think I have heard of those. You mentioned them before.
So, mo, ko, ro, po, to.
Not too shadowy. They don't seem very stealthy.
No. They're the Jadoon. They work for the Shadow Proclamation.
Okay.
I don't know why it's called the Shadow Proclamation.
Well, we'll get there eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait, what Doctor is that? When did we get to that? Is that the new stuff?
That's the 10th Doctor.
Okay. So we got a ways to go.
Yeah. It did get away from me.
So the Time Lords outlawed the use of miniscopes because they're inhumane.
Correct. Because they hold
Dr.
sentient beings in a zoo-like atmosphere, yeah.
Except this one was never recalled and destroyed because the showman won it in a gambling game.
Right. With the wallabies or something?
Yeah. Which is why the Doctor didn't know that's what his surrounding was. Even when it was very obviously presented to him, he's like, well, that's impossible because they're outlawed. So why wouldn't he just assume that maybe we're transported in time before they were outlawed? How does he know that? How does he travel to where he doesn't know where he lands, where he thinks he knows where he's landing, but he doesn't? But he always gets the time right, just never the location.
Okay, well, no. I mean, you actually bring up a valid point. How did he know that he was at a point after which they were outlawed?
Yeah.
Right. The only thing I can think of is that when you set the coordinates, you're changing the coordinates for space and for time. If you leave the time coordinates, whatever the current time is, you won't travel in time. You'll just travel in space. So he knew that they were after everything had been outlawed because they didn't move anywhere in time.
Yeah. He specifically in this serial, he said it's not he's not steering or he's programming. So
it's programming. So
it's different.
Right. So I mean, if I punch in the dates, and I punch in the coordinates.
Right.
Well, I just leave the date, whatever it currently is. I just punch in coordinates. I'm just going to travel in the current time to wherever I want to go to.
Except he's not a very good programmer because sometimes they'll be small, sometimes they'll be on the wrong planet.
Yeah.
Sometimes they have ended up in the wrong time though, because he tried to put them in current day London, but ended up in the medieval era.
Well, to be fair, the TARDIS was broken, and they don't get a properly working, functioning TARDIS until they basically give it back to him. Remember, the Doctor stole the TARDIS from a place that was basically fixing it.
Okay.
So it wasn't working properly, which is why the chameleon circuit got stuck.
If you're going to commit Grand Theft Auto, a half-repaired auto shop would be the wrong place to.
That's all they had. But anyway.
My questions will be answered when I get to that episode.
Yeah. But so, the TARDIS was broken. That's why he couldn't guide it where he wanted to, A. B, it's fixed now that he's gotten it back. But it's working, but he's still working out all the kinks. He eventually gets to the point where he can direct it anywhere he wants to go.
I feel like it's also like a personality thing where the Doctor has this amount of hubris to where he never says the machinery is faulty, but he also says he's never faulty. Even though, is it either him who's not programming it right, or is it the machine that's malfunctioning?
Yeah.
He always says, well, it's not me. I know perfectly how to pilot it. But he also never blames the machine for malfunctioning. He's like, oh, well, we're in the wrong time.
To be fair, the TARDIS a lot of times will take the Doctor not where he wants to go, but where it needs him to go. So it's the TARDIS doing it, not him.
I'd be very annoyed if I got in a taxi and I said, well, I need to go home. And the taxi's like, well, you really need to go to this place.
Hey, that's where you gotta be. That's where you gotta be. Alright.
I'd be thoroughly upset if that's what happened. They're like, well, you need to pay your bills, so we're taking you to the,
to the bank.
I'm like, I want to go home.
No, you need to work out. Here's the gym. You don't get to go home. Here's the gym.
I get off work, I'm tired, it takes me to the gym. I'd be upset.
No, but the TARDIS actually explains this to the Doctor later on. When the TARDIS is in a sentient form that can communicate with him.
A lady.
Yes.
An attractive lady.
Yeah.
Next note. Moving on. Word reminded of the Doctor. History, interference. I think that's about it. I think we covered all the questions. We talked about the Silurians too. Yeah. Next time, Frontier and Space.
No, wait.
Space.
Macroterra.
Yeah, we gotta talk about
animated Macroterra.
Terror. A lot more terrifying. A lot more of a terror than it was
with the reconstruction.
With the paper mache claws.
The Macroterra really benefited from the animation.
Giant crabs.
Yeah. The reconstruction was problematic. The animation was fantastic.
It was really good. Yeah, I never would have thought that serial would have been so entertaining if I hadn't.
Well, it's like
the
Enemy of the World.
Mm-hmm.
Before the Enemy of the World was found, it was deemed to be one of the lesser serials. But once it was found, and you could see the acting and you could see the story play out visually, it's now considered a favorite.
It also kind of changed my opinion on some of the characters in that. Unless I find my notes, I'm not going to remember their names. But the one that saw the macro and kind of goes haywire because he knows what's actually going on.
Oh, Taleb or something?
Yeah, I thought he was a lot more squirrely in the reconstructed, and I'm like, he's like this kind of spinal. But in the animation, I'm like, I don't know, I liked him a lot more. And then the opposite of that, the overseer and the gas mines, I thought, well, he's just following orders, he's reasonable, but then I saw the animation, I'm like, he's not such a nice guy after all.
No.
Once I saw like the facial expressions, I'm like, well, he doesn't really care.
Well, they had that one little snippet that survived because it was too violent for Australia, where it shows him cowering like that with the aged horror look on his face. Right. That I remember that they duplicated well for the animation. But you get a better sense of the story, much by far with that.
Yeah, and the characters, it really brings it all together. Yeah. Especially seeing the Macroterror and how they were originally imagined.
Yeah, as opposed to the really bad paper mache. I've got to kind of work my way into its claws to be captured by it. Yeah.
So the Macroterror went up on my list.
There you go.
I like it a lot more.
Yeah, and when we
did we ever vote on that season?
Yeah, we voted on all of the first and second Doctor seasons.
I think the Daleks still won that.
Yeah, no, but I'm thinking, wow, if they find a serial or animate a serial, and it turns out that it's just that good in the new form, we might actually have to revisit our old lists to see if we need to re-vote on any of them, if we believe that serial should be higher up on the list or win.
Nah.
No? Alright.
Maybe.
Well,
that seems like a lot of work.
Well, I mean, a lot of the stories suffer from the reconstruction.
Because then we're gonna have to rewatch the whole season to get.
No, we remember a lot of them. I mean, no. Here's the thing, though. I mean,
I was drunk when I watched those.
we can go. Okay, the Macra terror moves up, but it was in season 5. Okay, so what won season 5? And then go, okay, do we think it would actually beat that one? Probably not. But if we actually thought it did, ooh, Enemy of the World won, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Macra Terror was good, but there's no bloody way.
Enemy of the World, yeah.
Yeah, Enemy of the World. Oh no, Macra Terror was season 4.
Power of the Daleks won season 4.
Yeah, and we saw that one animated.
Then the War Games was season 6. War Games was the best of the second Doctor.
Yeah.
Season 7 was Inferno, which was fantastic. I still think
Love
about
Inferno.
that.
That's as far we've gotten. It was 7. We need to do 8 and 9.
Yeah,
We're on 10, and so we'll finish up 10, and then 11 is the last one for the third Doctor.
And then we'll do our favorite serial for
but I mean,
the third Doctor.
Yeah, the Macra Terror went up, but it wasn't beating Power of the Daleks.
I agree.
Okay. Yeah. We will be watching soon Fury from the Deep. Now, I highly, 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 highly doubt that Fury from the Deep will gain so much from the animation that it would then beat the Enemy of the World.
Yeah.
Right. But the same way we didn't think Enemy of the World was good until they found the show. You know, the reconstruction sucked.
Well, I never saw the reconstruction.
Right, I did. It sucked. So, but let's say Fury from the Deep just becomes this amazing, stupendous thing. We'd have to go back and go, well, does it actually beat Enemy of the World? We'd have to, decide that.
I did like Fury of the Deep. I like the costumes.
Oh,
It's very...
yeah. No, I like that one.
Very aerial, Little Mermaid-esque.
Wait a second.
No, in a twisted way. You ever read the book of where, not the Disney one, but where What's-Her-Face cuts out Ariel's tongue?
Yeah, and then she gives up her life and turns into sea foam in order to save him. Wait. Fury from the Deep is the one with the guy that screams, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Where'd you get the costumes like the mermaid?
I don't know.
You're thinking of the.
I'm thinking of.
You're thinking of the other one that was in Atlantis.
Yeah.
Oh wow, which one was
I
that?
was confused.
Which
Now
one?
I'm thinking about. Oh boy.
Wait, which serial was that? Oh, that was early on. That was the Underwater Menace.
There you
You're
go.
thinking the Underwater Menace. I'm
I
like,
get Fury
that's
of the Deep.
really early Troughton. Okay.
Never mind. Just disregard what I say.
Yeah. Okay. So within the
What I'm
next,
talking about.
sometime within this next month, probably April,
Mhm.
we're gonna keep doing these, but we're gonna alternate. And at some point, we're gonna watch Fury from the Deep, and
Which will be good because I don't remember.
Yeah. And the Faceless Ones, and then we'll talk about them when we talk about and then we'll do the heroes and villains
Speaking
for those.
of the faceless ones, you see the box art on the...
Yeah, cool.
I don't remember that scene where...
And we'll talk about them when we talk about these.
Okay.
Okay, when we do the regular episodes, but we will do the heroes and villains for that.
We'll do some voting.
Yeah, and we'll do some voting. But then eventually we'll be back to mostly just the main show, except when we don't want to drink for some reason. In which case, yeah, we'll keep going back to the heroes and villains.
Or on movie nights.
Right, or movie nights. But we'll have to figure out what we're going to. In that case, we'll have to figure out what we're going to watch because we'll have caught up to all the catch-up stuff.
Yeah.
Looks like I picked the wrong week to stop sniffing glue. All right. Cool. Do you have any other questions or comments or anything?
I don't think so. I think
Okay.
tapped.
All right. Well, okay. Currently, the animations that they supposedly have in the works are Evil the Daleks, The Abominable Snowman, The Web of Fear. It's only the one episode that needs to be animated. Remember, the 5 of the 6 exist.
Yeah.
And The Wheel in Space. And we're supposed to get all of these sometime this year or next, hopefully. Here's hoping. Not going.
I like the newer animations.
Yeah, they're nice.
Specifically, Macrotail was really good.
Faceless Ones is a little bit of a step back. I think it was done beforehand.
I haven't seen that one yet.
Well, we'll watch it sometime in the next few weeks. A little bit of a step back, but it's still good. Still, the animation is better than nothing. Although we did have 2 of those episodes.
You ever see
Never Ending Story? Yeah.
Man, I like that movie. I do not like the sequels.
The sequels are bad. All right. Anyway, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for joining us.
I think we got used to the shorter episodes.
We'll see you next week. That's okay.
See you next week. Bye.
We got less off track. This was not at all sidetracked.
Yeah.
On my ramblings. Speaking of which, you're supposed to cut me off, Fred.
Oh, okay.
Speaking of which.